Now, one thing that Battousai never says is, do you have a reasonable or articulable suspicion that a crime has been committed or that I'm about to be committing a crime? Because if not, I'd like to leave with my freedom right now. That's a really key line. It's great for juries to hear that. All right, so the only people think that there's a difference between detainment and arrest. There isn't. In the real world, what's the difference between being detained and being arrested? It's whether or not you have bracelets on, the handcuffs on. Because either way, you can't leave. The threat is, I say you're under detainment. If you walk away from me, I will at best follow you and continue to threaten you. And at worst, I will running tackle your head into a concussion right on the hardest sidewalk I can find. And then put bracelets on you, my knee in your lower back, torture you in the meantime, and then drag you off to a cage with some trumped up charges. Now, a detainment is a violent threat and needs to be recognized as such. And there's no difference between detainment and arrest except the handcuffs. Gosh, excuse me. Except the handcuffs. All right, so he just said, we're going to go ahead and get ID, which is still sounding a little bit voluntary, but yes, you are being detained. So I would question here the reason, the justification, legally speaking, for his detainment. And I've heard Battousai do that a lot. I'm not saying he made a mistake here. He just does it all the time. I'm just saying I didn't hear it here. Let's continue with the video.
No two ways about it.
Oh, no two ways about it. So that's a threat of force. There are no options. You are going to be ID'd, and you are under detainment right now. Now, those are threats. So what I do is I get specific and call out the threats. Like, for instance, all right, well, what's going to happen if I just don't want to wander around in public with my ID on me? After all, it's not a law that in order to walk on a public sidewalk, you have to have ID with you. What are you going to do in that case? Get him to mention more violence. All right. And then of course, well, what's your justification for detaining me? Oh, you're doing something suspicious. Standing on a public sidewalk is suspicious to you? Is that a legal determination you're making? Now, I could sit here and explain why that's key to say, but this video would be a lot longer. Get the cop to admit that he's making a legal determination. That's going to really work against him in a court of law. Don't believe that just because these people are called law enforcement officers that they know anything about the statutes or codes. Okay? Because they'll use the word law nice and freely, but it's just a big vague umbrella word that means whatever rules are made by the rule makers. That's all it means. Law actually means, right, the opinion of the senior most ranking bar member in the room, which is typically a judge, or conjecture as to what that opinion will be. They use law all the time. Oh, law this, law that, lawful order this, that, and the other. But it's a vague term. Get specific. We must make them get specific and not rely on vagueness. When they rely on vagueness and it passes and it works on you, they're able to further explain later in court, specifically what they meant under that big umbrella. Don't give them the protection of that umbrella. If you want specific information, you must ask a specific question. I'm going to give several examples of that in the video coming up.
All right, well, if I'm being detained, y'all can go ahead and do your investigation, but I'm just going to stay here and exercise my Fifth Amendment right. Just sit here, and if I'm not doing anything wrong, then there's no reason for me to be here.
We're going to go ahead and ID you one way or the other.
Okay, it's up to you. So he just repeats his threat, which gives me another opportunity to point out the threat. What if I don't carry ID while walking in public? Are you going to threaten me with further violence? And I know Battousai says I'm going to exercise my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and that's language that cops will at least pretend to respect. I get it. But because I don't believe in the authority or the legitimacy of the Constitution, seeing as how it's written over 200 years ago and it's nothing but allowed lawyers to spin up the current system of chaos that we're forced to live under, I don't care about any of the amendments to the Constitution either. I don't believe any rights exist like that. But you can make the same point here by saying, and everyone knows what it means, I'm going to choose to remain silent, as is completely justified given the circumstances. You're threatening me with violence. I'm going to choose to remain silent. Do you have a problem with that? You could say something like that. You could challenge his definition of law. You could point out to the violence that he's implying by saying there's no two ways about it. These are all the options I just want to bring up that sound really great to jurors and viewers.
What do you mean one way or the other? Pardon me?
Oh, he just did it. Perfect. What do you mean one way or the other? He did exactly that. He's forcing this guy to articulate his threat of violence. Great.
What do you mean one way or the other?
One way or the other, if we have to take you downtown and fingerprint you, we'll do that. You're being detained for investigative purposes right now. Believe me, I know the law better than you. So you can film all you want. You can set it up however you want. We're going to ID you. But until we do that, you're not free to go.
Now keep in mind, this man was removed from patrol duty. That he embarrassed the chief, he embarrassed the rest of his police officers, and he made the work that the good cops do more difficult by acting this way in front of a video camera that obviously got a lot of attention. He got taken off of patrol duty. They don't trust him anymore because of his lack of training. I'm sure the lawyers were the prosecution's office was just clowning this guy to the chief. What kind of person? Where does he get this training from? Why is he saying this? Does he not even know the Bill of Rights and the amendments? He has to at least put out an illusion of respecting them. These annoying people with YouTube cameras, they're trying to get the public against us so they'll stop paying taxes to keep us in power. What the heck are you? I mean, that's really the hustle that's going on. So this guy, just from the jump, is already totally, completely wrong. That's been proven already. So that's not up for debate. And he's up there saying, I know the law better than you. Oh, really? Do you? Okay. If you know the law better than I do, you should be able to define the word law. Now, can you please give me a definition of the word law? I'm not looking to argue with you or debate you. I just want to know if you even know what the definition of the word law is as a law enforcement officer. I guarantee you the next words out of his mouth are going to be a complete fabrication or completely inaccurate. Oh, it's the laws that the judges make and the legislature passes. It's the rules that you have to follow. You're not an exception to the rule. That's the best answer he could possibly give. Fair enough, but do they ever write anything down and call it a law? Do they call it U.S. law or Texas law, subsection A, paragraph 2, alpha, or anything like that? Or do they call it a statute and a code? Do you follow statutes and codes that are labeled as such, or do you follow laws because they call them laws? Which is it? Because if he sticks to, oh no, it's a law, well, he's just wrong, looking like a dummy. And if he says statutes and codes, then you can say, okay, great, so can we please not use the word law anymore? Because what you actually mean is I'm not obeying a statute or a code, correct? If you get that admission, that's key toward getting a further admission that the applicability of the statutes and codes don't apply to anyone. It's a system they're trying to sell as voluntary interaction, even though they use fines and asset forfeiture and prisons to back up their will. To point out the fact that the prosecutors who they hand these criminal charges to be prosecuted, never even provide any factual evidence whatsoever that these statutes and codes apply to any defendant. And when you're talking about nonviolent, victimless criminal charges, there's never any evidence or justification to throw someone in a cage or fine them for it. If the statutes and codes don't apply, then these are just men in costumes and guns. They're not actually legitimate security forces of any kind. They're hired thugs. Now, this isn't a conversation you can just randomly pop open to a cop and expect it to have sway, but it's the truth. And it's powerful on videos, with viewers and with potential jury members, because it's true. Military courts, those prosecutors, they provide factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction. We have jurisdiction because I've got your signature right here from the document you signed when you joined up, that you voluntarily agreed to live under these rules, even if they have an imposition upon you, and here we are. So asked and answered, there's the factual evidence. Would you like to inspect it? I can make you a copy. Closed case. Assuming their ethics don't exist, but that's another conversation for another video. But in the civilian side of the game, because they have never had anybody sign, oh yeah, I'll live under these statutes and codes, they don't actually have what they consider quote-unquote consent of the governed. Now, if you're governed, you're dominated and ruled over. I don't think you can even give consent to that. It's like saying, oh, I consent to be raped. But they don't have any kind of justification, they don't have any agreement from the population that their statutes and codes apply. Now, why? Because they just obviously make up statutes and codes every single year. More and more restrictions, more and more fines, more and more regulations to live under, all the while we're increasing their surveillance state over all of you. And that's why these are hired thugs. Now, Can you really go into that kind of detail here on the spot? Maybe not. But if it keeps the conversation going and keeps the violent threats away, you're really, see this guy up here in the top right? You're really talking to him. Because this guy here, his opinion doesn't matter, and he's not a human being. I don't consider this guy a human being. The way he's acting right now, he will never be part of the solution. He is for right now nothing but the problem. This guy right here, you never know. And the other dude over there, you never know. The other three weren't, I don't hear him saying anything violent or being threatening, verbally or non-verbally. So you always wonder what's going on in their head. Because when these cops learn the facts, that, oh my gosh, I'm not really America's finest in protecting and serving and doing great work day after day after day to protect the community. When they figure out that, oh my gosh, these lawyers and judges are doing whatever the heck they want with zero accountability, with zero transparency, and these statutes and codes never apply. I just believe they apply because I was just brainwashed my whole life that they automatically apply because there's just one monopoly of force in town, and this is it. You want to drive that cognitive dissonance deep into their soul. You want to talk ethics and logic to them in a way they can't squirm out from. You want to outdo the training they've been indoctrinated with. Obviously from the very calm, chill, professional manner, which is what you always see from Battousai. Props to him. All right, sorry for the rant there. Let's continue on to the video here.
Texas is not a stop and ID state, is it?
Guys, go ahead and frisk this gentleman.
Perfect question. Is Texas a frisk and stop and frisk state? Which basically means, are you really going to be all Nazi, like, show me your papers? This guy isn't proud of what's going on here. The guy's never making direct eye contact, never contributing, and now he completely ignores a very relevant question. Are you a Nazi? Is this some kind of stop and frisk scenario? Because he knows it's not, or according to the state law, according to, right, that woo-woo word. He knows it's not, so he completely ignores it and then doesn't even have the courage to enforce his own will. He waves over his subordinates to go do his dirty work for him. Why? Because that's a coward. That's a coward in every sense of the word, and he's armed to the teeth.
Sure he doesn't have any weapons on him?
I have no weapons, and I do not consent to searches.
Him, like I said.
That was perfect. Battousai, that was perfect. I don't consent to any searches and I have no weapons. You're basically claiming I'm no threat to you and I don't consent to any searches. And then he shut up. Flawless. Flawless victory. Now let's see what happens.
Make sure he has no weapons on him.
I don't consent to searches.
He can either provide us his information willingly or we can do it through the ID section downtown.
Now, he's not even talking to Turner here. He's talking to his fellow cronies here. This guy wants nothing to do with this. He's looking away. He's just kind of observing. But, you know, he's not doing anything threatening here. I was just shocked when I saw this. A cop ordered two other cops, go ahead and break the amendments that we've sworn an oath to protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Your domestic enemy stands among you, gentlemen. Your domestic enemy has the star of a Cowboys football team on his shirt.
What gives you the authority to do that?
Go ahead and get this done, guys. I'm not going to argue with this guy.
Go ahead and get this done, guys. I'm not going to argue with this guy. These cops didn't even want to do it. They didn't want to frisk him. They didn't want to move against him because he wasn't doing anything wrong. And they actually had to be prodded again by their superior. I'm not going to sit here and debate and argue with this guy. Battousai's not arguing or debating. These cops know what's going on.
You're violating my Fourth Amendment. You know that, right?
You do what you need to do, and we'll do what we need to do.
Of course, he completely ignores that. Battousai is dead on. Dead on. Unreasonable searches and seizures. And of course, the guy ignores him entirely. You do what you need to do. We're going to do what we need to do. The dude's a Nazi soldier straight out of World War II. I mean, without the insane level of violence and shooting, of course. But the principles that's going on here are exactly the same.
You have anything on you that we need to know about? Knives, guns, weapons? I have nothing. I'm just holding my hands up. Put your hands back behind you. You can put the camera down and film us while we're doing this if you want to. Am I under arrest? That's what I'm asking. You're being detained. And during the detention, you can be frisked for safety.
If he won't put it down, handcuff him.
Here, I'll put my hand.
If he won't put it down, handcuff him. He's not being arrested, only being detained. But if he doesn't put the accountability machine down, handcuff him so that it's forced to be put down while he's looking away. He's not doing the dirty work himself. Oh, he's sitting back all nice and calm. Yeah, just giving orders. Hilarious.